taken that concept, and I noticed that the second paper is not just that concept, but you actually expanded into this balloon system that seals out the air. So if you could talk about what the advantages are of that, and then what is the technology that drives that. Get a little bit into this pump, because both the lens and the pump are technologies that did not exist before now.
Sure.
And as you're getting ready for that, I just want to remind people, if you want to ask a question onto the call, all you have to do is press *1. That'll place you into a queue, and we can bring you right into the discussion. And if you want to email one, just send a request to webcast@nsf.gov. So if you want to go ahead and get your toys ready.
So basically what we did was we made a universal ear mold that fits any ear and inflates in the ear with this auxiliary tympanic membrane.
Now that's a much bigger membrane. So how did you make the jump here from your modification of an existing earbud tech to this balloon, basically?
Well, we noticed that although inflatable ear tips have been patented before, no one did it with what we call non-elastic or non-extensible material. This is more like an air bag, like you would have in your car.
Sure.
Okay. Now, when you have a balloon that's stretchy, then it has a surface tension, and that surface tension is too great to absorb these overexcursions that I mentioned.
Interesting.
Okay. So this is a variable pressure device where you can vary how much it absorbs according to your own anatomy, and it can fit any configuration of ear. So in hearing aids, we have had the impact where hearing aid wearers have been able to turn their hearing aids down by half or 2/3, because now the lower volumes sound much better, much louder, much more balanced, and they hear a lot more detail because of this. Now, in order to inflate that, I designed what I call an Ambrose diaphonic pump, and this is one right here that fits on the back of a hearing aid speaker. Speakers have two sides to the diaphragm, the speaker cone that presents to the eardrum, and then the back side of the speaker, which usually fits in a speaker cabinet or a trapped area. Now that energy is wasted. So we put this little valve on the back of the speaker, and we harvest that wasted energy in order to inflate this bubble in your ear. And if you log on to www.asiustechnologies.com, you'll see this bubble coming out of an earbud and inflating and inserting itself in the ear, and then retracting itself when it's pulled away.
And also we should note that the device itself, the pump, is shown schematically and broken apart in the paper and elsewhere on that website. So if people want to check that out, it's pretty clearly stated online.
Here's a demonstration of the pump. I have one of these valves in a simple plug that would plug into an MP3 player. So inside this plug is this little valve, and if we put it, this is a hollow tube, and we can turn this on and play a very soft sound, and you can see that it's able to blow bubbles in the water. Are those bubbles obvious?
Yeah, we can see little ones coming out.
Good. And we've been able to lift oranges and grapefruit. Now, one of the reasons that
Now that's when you put a bunch of them in series, though. That's not just a single device, right?
That's not just a single device. With a single device, on the website you'll see it pumping a quarter up and down, and one of the reasons that I invented that was to prove that there were volumes in the ear from in-the-ear devices capable of static pressures. Sure. Like we had been experiencing over the years with in-the-ear monitors and
so then you harness that technology to allow you to inflate this seal, basically. So instead of it being a harm, you're just using it as a mechanism, as a tool to inflate the seal and keep that mechanism sealed in the ear. Now, how does it work when you, I don't know if you want to go ahead and inflate one of the seals just so people can see what it would look like. Now, this is being inflated artificially with a pump as opposed to being inflated with a diaphonic pump. But it's just to show how this looks and it's actually inside the ear.
So we just take this. It's very light and delicate. And one of the problems with ear molds is that when you chew, and move your jaw, you'll notice if you put your little finger in your ear that your ear canal symmetry is changing. And this gets mashed up against a hard ear mold, like a hearing aid ear mold or an in-the-ear monitor ear mold. And that mashes the ear canal tissue against that hard mold. So this bubble is quite gossamer, and it just seals very delicately with compliance with the motions of the ear canal. Another thing that it does, which is quite striking, is that it's capable of no isolation, where it's totally deflated, to total isolation. And this isolation is more than you can get with the popular active noise canceling headphones that are used on the jets and that sort of thing.
Do you want to go ahead and demonstrate the inflation and deflation in the camera box so that we can see that up close, so that people can see the range of motion that this has? And then when it seals in the ear, it completes. And the diaphonic pump uses the sound. No, this again is being manually pumped, but the diaphonic pump uses sound to inflate that seal, correct?
That's correct. This is very fast inflation. The diaphonic pump is capable of a range of pressures that accommodate your personal anatomy, so that if your middle ear pressure is a certain equilibrium,
yep,
then the bubble can be close to that. If it's greater than that, then more energy is impinged on your middle ear and tympanic membrane. And if it's less than that, more of it is absorbed by the bubble. And that resonates like a speaker cabinet, or it is a speaker cabinet in the ear. And may I say that this is the first time we've ever had a speaker cabinet in the ear that close to the tympanic membrane without including the eardrum in the speaker cabinet, which of course is very bad because of these over excursions and high pressures.
So you create this speaker cabinet, but at the same time you're absorbing the extra
We're absorbing
motion.
extra sound. It resonates in the speaker cabinet and then transduces through the canal wall as bone conduction. We found also one of the reasons that people listen at high volumes is that bone conduction is a very large component of what we hear naturally. If you go and sit in front of your television or at a concert and you totally seal your ears, if you're quiet for a moment, you'll notice you can really still hear. Okay, it's much lower, but you can hear. And you might have someone walk around you and talk to you with your eyes closed, and you can pretty much tell where they are in the room, or you can close your eyes and turn around in front of your television with your ears closed, and you hear a lot. This is transduction or bone conduction sound. When that is not a component in these types of devices, then we end up making up for it in the acoustic sound at higher volumes. So when the energy, extra energy, is absorbed by the bubble and resonates, it's now transduced sound into the canal wall, which is the most sensitive part of the body to bone conduction or transduced sound, and it adds to the frequency response. So the manufacturers of these speakers, using the speakers, the balanced armature speakers used in professional in-the-ear monitors and hearing aids, those typically have a very hard time with bass. And the manufacturers have listened to these and remarked that their speakers are simply not capable of the kind of bass that they heard using these. And that is explained by this energy resonating in this bubble and transducing through the tissue. And it actually starts to feel as though you can almost feel the kick drum on your chest, and you know that it's not hitting your chest, but it's part of the experience of the concert or the music.
And you're still protected because it's actually absorbing the overexcursions?
Yes, these are not being impinged on the tympanic membrane, which does no good because, first of all, when they are, the acoustic reflex turns everything down, and that's why we couldn't lower the volumes on stage and still hear the music that we were playing along with. You have to hear the bass and hear the drums and these sorts of things. And so we left it high on stage because we needed it professionally to play. But at the expense of, at the end of the evening, there's a tremendous audio fatigue.
Right.
And,
so I want to get back to the audio in a little bit and the tours and some of the ways these things have been used. But you brought in some hearing aid devices as well. I was wondering if you could talk about that. It's kind of a unique application for these things. And I kind of one of the things that I want to point out in particular is that these devices are designed completely differently, but the pump, you're saying the pump would be included into this device, would inflate the system, and basically recreate the clarity of sound that's been missing because the devices have otherwise occluded the ear, and even when you drilled a hole, it did not solve that effect, correct?
Well, it depends on the hearing, the type of hearing loss. Okay.
Okay.
Some people have very severe hearing loss, so they have a whole big mold in their ear, and they can't even put a hole in it to vent this jaw motion and the occlusion effect of your voice booming in your head, which, incidentally, one of the great aspects of the bubble approach and the retrofit ear lens is that it significantly lowers the occlusion effect. Many people that sing on stage hear their voice boom in their head while they're singing, and they have to turn the volume up above that in order to have their voice sound natural. So you're listening at much higher volumes.
And that's on top of the stipedius reflex as well.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Wow.
So this occlusion effect or booming is absorbed. Now, the people with the full big ear molds have to listen to that occlusion effect as long as they wear their hearing aid, which is often all day, which is why their voice sounds so muddy. So that's one approach. And then we have another approach where you have these devices which are called receiver in canal, RIC devices. They're very popular. They have 40 or 50% of the hearing aid market today. And they're very tiny, and you don't see anything but a tiny little wire, and it's very discreet. And these are usually for mild to moderate hearing loss. Okay. Now, we've been able to affix our technology onto this, which means that the isolation between the microphone of the hearing aid and the speaker, which if you put them too close to each other, they cause feedback. Okay? The isolation has been enhanced as much as 30 decibels. So you can really start to get some volume out of these now that you couldn't get before, because one, it's not triggering the stipedius reflex, so the speaker is now loud enough, even though it's one of the tinier speakers that fits right in the ear canal. This is the speaker before the bubble is put on it. And if I turn it on, you hear the
feedback. Yes.
The feedback.
That sounds
okay.
wonderful. Thank you.
Now, we're able to affix this tiny little pump right on to the side of this speaker. And just as a function of turning the hearing aid on and having it amplify whatever sound you're listening to, it pumps the bubble up and keeps it pumped up, which is quite important, because if it was just a statically inflated balloon, then as you go up and down in an elevator or the weather changes,
Sure.
It gets bigger or smaller and it loses its seal. But this is like an airbag, and it's very soft. Stuntmen jump off of buildings, and if they were to fall on a statically inflated air mattress, they would bounce halfway back up. Okay, but they don't. They fall in an airbag, and
Right.
that airbag is able to be very gentle and not hurt them, and absorb the motion. And that's why we have this technology, which absorbs the overexcursions or sounds and pressures that cause the overexcursions, and also the occlusion effect, and also conforms with the ear canal in a size which can now be a one-size-fits-all or two-size-fits-all, and accommodate that unique anatomy of every ear with a simple device.